There's so many reasons to not start a business. Most of them are totally valid. Yeah, it takes time. Yeah, it might cost you some money. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. It's not nearly as safe as getting a 9-to-5. And all of those things are totally true. And also on the other side of it is a really cool experience that you can have and go impact and change people's lives. And added bonus, you get to do something that you love in the process.
That was Kyle Weiger, and I'm Henry Winslow. You're listening to Dharma Talk. Dharma Talkers, welcome back to another episode. And to the first timers, thanks for checking out the podcast. You all are my people. You're the type of yogi, the type of person who asks the difficult questions, not just of others, but of yourself. What am I here to do? How can I contribute and serve others? How can I participate in the evolution of mankind? Well, that's what Dharma Talk is all about. And if you're feeling inspired right now, well, you're in the right place. This week, I'm stoked to share my incredibly empowering and equally nerdy conversation with handstanding obsessive and online marketing savant, Kyle Weiger. But first, I'm going to make my weekly appeal. Folks, if you enjoy this podcast or if you'd be disappointed to see it disappear, please take any or all of these small actions that can make a big difference for the show. First, subscribe. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, basically anywhere that you listen to podcasts, you can subscribe. And you can even do it on my website, and I'll send you an email each week when the new episode comes out with a little teaser. Second, leave a rating and review. It takes all of 30 seconds, and it makes a huge difference for letting these podcast directories know that you enjoy the show and other people might as well. So of course, I'd prefer a 5-star rating, but be honest and let others know how you feel. Third, share the episode with a friend. If this episode is meaningful to you, if it resonates, if you learn something from it, find someone in your life that could also benefit and share the episode. And lastly, if you have the financial means to make a donation, they are always appreciated and really help me to keep this podcast up and running at a high quality. You can make a donation at henrywins.com/donate. Dharma Talkers, I've got a few announcements to share with you before we dive into the interview. At the end of this month, September 27th through 29th, I'm going to be teaching at Horizon Hot Yoga in Dallas, Texas. I'll be teaching my Hatha Vinyasa classes, an arm balance workshop, and an especially special workshop that I call Gratitude Practice. It's a heart-centered vinyasa class followed by meditation to bring in abundance and appreciate all the blessings in our lives. Then the following weekend, I'm going to Austin, Texas, back to my old stomping grounds at Yoga East Austin to teach a 4-day immersion with Jared McCann. Each day begins with a morning sadhana of pranayama, meditation, kriya, and then we go into a JM Vinyasa class, the signature style of Lighthouse in Brooklyn. In the afternoons, we do workshops, posture clinics, and satsang discussions. So for the details on these workshops, these events, and everything else I have coming up, please head to henrywins.com/events. Are you feeling stuck or stagnant? Are you looking for a catalytic experience to ignite radical transformation? Join me and my wife, Veronica Lombo, for an unforgettable retreat designed to ground your body, purify your mind, and expand your connection to consciousness through yoga, sacred silence, and natural immersion. Our week together in Bali will offer you the perfect environment to refocus on what is calling you, your purpose, your perfect path, your Dharma, so that you can move forward with renewed vigor into growth and service to others. The days will be structured around guided group meditations, vinyasa and hatha yoga classes, delicious and clean plant-based meals, of course, and opportunities for free exploration of nature, both outside and within. Come honor your past experience and effort, celebrate where you are now, and lay a pure foundation for the year to come. Clear the space for reconnection to Source with us in Bali, December 5th through 11th, 2019. Get the details and make a deposit at henrywins.com/Bali. This week on Dharma Talk, I'm interviewing Kyle Weiger. Kyle, at Kyle Weiger on Instagram, is a traveling handstand coach and online entrepreneur on a mission to show people that they are capable of way more than they think. His workshops and online courses are built on the idea that the biggest changes happen through a combination of hard work, focus, and fun. Kyle and I first met a few years ago at a coffee shop in California, but we really became fast friends earlier this year on a week-long hand balance training that we took from Miguel Santana in Spain. It was there that we bonded over intensive practice and our shared love of broccoli. So with that being said, I'm pleased to say that we resisted the urge to spend an hour reviewing our preferred flavors of hummus dips, and instead we dug into these fascinating topics. Approaching handstands from different perspectives, technical styles, and mindsets. No, believe it or not, handstand is not owned by the yoga community. We talk about overcoming imposter syndrome and letting your passion, rather than some impossible to reach idea of mastery, guide your steps forward and progress. And we close with a riveting conversation around entrepreneurship and leveraging technology to build businesses that support a lifestyle of your own design, even if you're not tech savvy. So if you have ever considered taking your teaching online or starting an online business, stay tuned to the end of this episode because there are some very exciting things on the horizon coming from my friend Kyle, and it's going to be easier than ever to do that. Okay, after you listen to the episode, if anything that Kyle says resonates with you, if you want to learn more or go deeper with him, head over to http://dharmatalk.show and type Kyle in the search bar, Kyle, and you're going to get all the notes and links for this episode, including timestamps around the talking points of our conversation, and also including Kyle's recommended book and upcoming events. And just so you know, I've got a running list of every book ever recommended on Dharma Talk. So if you're looking for another book to read, another book to add to your shelf, head over to henrywins.com/books and pick out your next read. Now, without further ado, please enjoy my interview with Kyle Weiger. Kyle Weiger, welcome to Dharma Talk. How's it going?
Henry, I'm thrilled to be here, man. Thanks for having me on your show. And I know we had talked about this a while back. It's cool that it's finally coming to fruition.
Totally. You know, actually, we spoke about this. I feel like, in full disclosure to our audience, the original plan was not to have you on Dharma Talk. It was to create a sideshow called Brock Talk.
Brock Talk, where we're just talking about broccoli all day.
All day. You know, that is the secret to handstanding, as I'm sure that you're going to share with our audience today.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with practicing handstand or even getting stronger. If you eat enough broccoli, you can actually just circumvent all of the hard work.
Okay, there we go. Podcast over. Thanks for your time.
See you guys.
Kyle, in all honesty, I'm really excited to have you on the show because you're just such a charismatic person, and I feel, lucky to have crossed paths with you. You're such a funny person, and I know we're gonna have fun today. But first, sure. I always open with the same question, so I want to give you that question today.
Okay.
And that is, what does the word Dharma mean to you, and what is your Dharma as you understand it today?
Yeah, I guess my personal understanding or interaction with the word Dharma I've always just understood it as like my path or my calling or what I'm supposed to be doing with this, finite amount of time that I have, on the planet. So my Dharma personally has transitioned from I mean, it changes, right? So in my teens and early 20s, if you were to ask me what my Dharma was, I'd say, oh, I'm going to be a professional baseball player. So I was playing collegiate baseball at the time. And then, fast forward the tape 17 years, and now I'm an online handstand coach. So for me, I think it's always just listening to whatever your calling is, even though that calling is most likely going to change direction and pivot at some point.
Totally. Yeah. Life is full of changes, both ones that we intend for and steer toward, and also ones that are completely unexpected. And as you alluded to, I doubt that the teenage Kyle was aware that he was headed in the direction of online handstand teaching, or even probably aware that it existed as an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, look at the just the invention itself of the internet and online videos. So when I was 15, that wasn't a thing. That would have been, I guess it was. That would have been 1997. The internet was pretty fresh to where I lived in South Dakota, and you didn't even consider like, oh, maybe one day I'll use this insane tool as a means to produce my income and my livelihood, and ways to meet people like you, for example. I spend at least an hour and a half a day on your Instagram page, so it's a nice opportunity to what basically what I'm saying is, what else is going to be invented down the road that we don't even know exists yet, that is going to change the way that we conduct business or the way we find new interests or connect with people,
or the way that we waste time scrolling with our thumbs.
Huge time waster. But I don't consider my 90 minutes on your Instagram page to be a waste of time. It's a lot of inspiration for me.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
I have it blocked off every morning. I wake up 90 minutes of Henry, and then I get a cup of coffee, and then I'm ready to go.
Yeah, then you're ready to start your day. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back in time a little bit.
Okay.
Talk me through your process of going from a dedicated baseball player to handstand coach. What were the steps along the way there, and how did that process unfold?
Totally. After college, I had jumped straight into like the corporate world. I wasn't doing any self development type practices like yoga or anything. I was using kind of like some more motivation mindset stuff in the business world. I was all about sales and marketing, and having everyone know that I was like a top sales guy and I make good money. And it's like, in your early 20s, you want to have this identity when you're going up against other people in your company who are well established, like grown men who have been in the industry for a while. And my life was really all about, being a weight room bro, making a lot of money, and then just partying my ass off on the weekends, because that's what you did that's all I knew. And then I had actually ended up working at a software company with my best friend, whose house I'm actually in right now in Denver recording this. And I got into yoga. And then, like most things in my life, I became obsessed with the new shiny object, which was yoga practice for me. And it didn't take long. I ended up practicing like every single day, sometimes twice a day, and then was eventually leaving work middle of the day to go to class, which my boss definitely didn't like. And then I got an offer to do a discounted teacher training because I was one of the studio cleaners. And so I did the teacher training, and then immediately I was like, oh, let's take this fact that I work at like this video based kind of tech company, combined with the fact that I now a certified yoga teacher, and I had just turned 30 years old, I believe. And I was like, it's time. I need to start my own business, man. It is now or never. And so I went out and I started a little yoga website where we would host like yoga videos. And I had a bunch of teachers from Denver on that site, and it was really cool. But I didn't actually, here was my main thought about it. And I've said this before. I was so naive that if I would have actually known how hard it was going to be, I probably would have never started. But I started the business, and then thought, well, I'll just put some videos on the internet, and then I'll make $1 million, because that's how the internet works. Little did I know that is, obviously way more complex than that. It did allow me to fail on some big things and learn from them and cut my teeth. And then fast forward the tape, I have a new site, KyleWeiger.com, where I have an online handstand course. In between yoga was kind of the foyer into hand balancing or handstanding. And then I got into gymnastics, and then started training with, as you know, some more high level hand balancers. And we can touch on like the value of those type of trainings as well. But that was the path, man. I was just like this kind of out of control 20 something kid, just all about money. And then the yoga part of me got me a little more in touch with myself, and I guess my Dharma and what I wanted to do with my life. And so here I sit before you, traveling handstand coach with an online course that had, I guess, kind of just got here by pure accident, just kind of stumbling along the way.
Well, you've clearly got that enterprising spirit. Most people, even if they have, and maybe not most people, but a lot of people may have an idea that sits exactly in that place as an idea in their head forever, as a dream. What do you think was it that allowed you to take action so quickly and just go for it? Is that something that you've always had in you, or did you learn that through any of the skills that you developed along the way?
I think I've just always had that. When I get excited about something, I just get really excited, and I don't ask a ton of questions. I don't make a pro con, list or spreadsheet about it. It's just more like, hey, this really has my attention right now, so let's give it all that I have. And so when I decided to start my first yoga site, it was like, boom, quit my job. I didn't do it on the side. I quit my job and dove headfirst into that, which was super scary. But yeah, I think you have to put yourself in a position where there's risk involved, or else you don't try as hard. You know what I mean? So with the handstand thing, it all came about when I was teaching in Australia, and I was about to leave, and the students were like, "Oh man, that handstand workshop was really great. Thank you for that. Where can I find your videos?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't have any videos." And they said, "You should really make some videos." And that's when it hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I need to record a handstand course and sell it on the internet. And then I came back and I had the course done within a few months. And as you know, making something doesn't mean people are going to buy it. Like you have to actually do something after you make it. And that for me has been the biggest journey. Making a product is actually pretty easy if you really care about your product and you're passionate about it. It's then relaying that passion to other people, which is where the magic is, in my opinion.
Yeah. And is that marketing?
Yeah, I would call that marketing. Yeah, I think that's the fancy name for it.
Well, I'm curious, before we talk more about the whole business side and your journey and discovering everything that it takes to make an online business function smoothly and be profitable and all of that, talk to me a little bit about the transition from yoga into dedicated hand balance. Like, where did that come from, and what have you noticed to be different amongst the students that you encounter and the teachers that you learn from?
Totally. Yoga, as I said, was my first exposure to hand balancing. I, would see people press up to handstand in yoga class and would just be like so enamored with it. And I had always had a strong upper body. So from the years of baseball. So with the first time when we would get to do like crow pose in the beginner classes, that was like the part I looked forward to. That and the fact I was super inflexible also from years of baseball. And I was like, okay, I'm getting more stretchy and bendy, but man, when I'm balancing on my hands, I just feel so strong. And then I followed kind of the progression that most yoga students do. You get like crow, and then you're like, okay, what about headstand? What about side crow? What about EPK2? And then eventually you get like the courage to kick up and flop around in a handstand. So I was that for many, many years. I would attend every arm balance workshop I could in Denver. When like guest teachers would come from out of town, I would clear my schedule. And what happened was about end of 2013 ish, maybe middle of 2013, there was a gymnastics group that was practicing in the back of a yoga studio. And they would get together. They'd have like 3 or 4 classes a week, and it was a few blocks from my house. And so I popped over there again, super naive, thinking, oh, well, I do like 8 yoga classes a week, 8 to 10 a week. I'm going to do really good at gymnastics. And then you step into the gymnastics arena and you realize just how high caliber of an athlete those people are. Yeah, I could not hang at all. I mean, I was having fun because I was learning, but I couldn't do any of the exercises. And that group is now Denver's super popular gym called Weiger Gymnastics. They went and got their own facility. But in that, I realized there was a big difference between scapular depression and elevation amongst the 2 handstands. Or like gymnastics doesn't have handstand scorpion as part of their practice, where in yoga you do. So you need a totally different position of the shoulder. Gymnastics has a different position of the head, whereas yoga might look a little further out. Gymnastics would go look down or chin completely tucked. And so I started developing new strengths to complement both. And I thought they were a really good complementary practice. And I, again, would do a ton of gymnastics, but the one part I really looked forward to, much like I looked forward to crow pose in yoga, I looked forward to handstand practice. I didn't really care about the like parallel bars or the rings or, I'm awful at tumbling, by the way. You make me do 2 cartwheels and I'm so dizzy I'll fall over. But I really looked forward to that part where I was like, okay, handstand practice. And then I remember watching during that whole gymnastics thing, I was just constantly on YouTube looking for videos. And I saw a video of a guy named Andre Mararu. And anyone who's in the hand balance world knows who Andre Mararu is. He is one of the most elegant movers in the game. He makes it look so effortless. And I was like, what is this guy doing? This looks kind of like dance, but it looks kind of like yoga, but it looks kind of like gymnastics. And that's when I discovered hand balancing is its own art underneath the umbrella of circus arts. And it's its own discipline. It's its own, time dedicated thing that people devote their lives to. It is definitely not yoga. It's definitely not gymnastics. It's just its own bucket. And that I'm starting to see is where a lot of people get mixed up, is they don't even know hand balancing exists. Like I'll be doing handstand, practice at my gym, and people come up and they're like, "Oh, do you do a lot of yoga?" And I'm kind of like, well, I do, but that's not what I'm doing now. Or I had the sweetest old lady come up to me at 24 Hour Fitness, because most people just see handstand and they don't really know like the full spectrum. And this old woman comes up to me and she's like, "Are you training for the Olympics?" And I just my heart just jumped out of my chest. I was like, "You are the sweetest woman in the whole world." But
But the short answer is yes, I am.
Yeah, short answer. I'm actually a gold medalist. No, to me, I find it super laughable because the degree of difference between 37-year-old handstand coach Kyle and like an Olympic level gymnast is, they're not even, they're not even in the same conversation, right? But to the layperson, the handstand is just either it's a yoga thing or maybe you're a gymnast, but hand balancing is its own thing. And I do find that when doing it, I go into like my yoga mindset. I probably don't use like a yoga style breath because it's different for endurance, handstands, but I'm present. I'm focused on my body. There's no distractions and I am like in the moment. So in that regard, I do take a very like yogic sort of a mental approach to the, my asana or whatever would be just the handstand, right?
Okay, this is good, and a question that I want to explore further. So you mentioned that hand balancing is this kind of obscure, under the radar, but distinct discipline unto itself that people don't necessarily know about. And even from your time going into the gymnastics group and training handstands there and contrasting it to what you had learned about handstands in your yoga classes, you picked up on these subtle anatomical differences. So apart from mindset, what would you say are the key differences between the handstanding that you're practicing or hand balancing that you're practicing and a handstand that's integrated into a yoga practice? Can these practices be interwoven, or are they necessarily distinct?
I love this question because I teach primarily 90% of my teaching engagements around the world. I end up at yoga studios because that is where the largest audience of handstand enthusiasts exists. Here's the way I've delineated the two. I think absolutely you can integrate both. You can integrate like a hand balancing type of handstand into your yoga practice. In the early days, as I learned handstand in yoga, here's the anatomical things that immediately jumped out at me were the placement of the hands. I would have teachers say, put your hands as wide as your mat, for a nice wide base. Now in hand balancing, it would be just the opposite. You want hands directly underneath your shoulders for a narrow base because you want bone stacking, which is a much more efficient way to handstand than if you're using muscle, the deltoids in the shoulders with your hands wide. Another thing is, grip your mat like a basketball or, grab your mat really hard. In hand balancing, you don't want to use a lot of calories with the flexion of the fingers because the muscles that control the fingers exist up in the forearms. And as you know from endurance holds, the first thing to go in an endurance handstand is the muscles of the forearms. It feels like there's battery acid running through there at about the 90-second mark, right? Right. And I think with yoga, you handstand as part of your flow. Or you can, if you have that, like if you're doing super salutations, it's down dog, jump forward into handstand, lower into forward fold, run through your salutation. And then when the teacher says, oh, step or float back to chaturanga, the handstanders will always, either press or tuck up into handstand and then float down into chaturanga. So it's
you call that super salutation?
That I've heard it called that before, a super sal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
You go ahead and put that one in your pocket.
Yeah, I'm learning new vocabulary right now. This is good.
I actually made up the entire practice of yoga. I'm not sure if you know that. Yeah. But no, it's
Kyle Shiva Weiger.
Shiva Weiger. I love it. So there's within the world of asana, handstand is a part of that. And there's also a million other poses, and there's also 7 other limbs of yoga. In hand balancing, you only do one thing. You know what I mean? It's not this part of this larger spiritual practice. The other thing I think with yogis when they're first learning handstand is that balance supersedes form. And I don't know if I necessarily teach that way anymore. I used to teach people just kick up and just try to stay up with the balance, right? And it usually means you're sacrificing your form, your hips are past your shoulders, and you have the dreaded banana back, which is not just the mark of a yoga handstander, of any beginner handstander, from like CrossFitters included, right? Because the excitement of being upside down and being on your hands, you're like, oh my God, holy cow, I'm upside down. This is the greatest thing ever. Whereas, experienced hand balancers or handstanders, getting upside down and balancing is no longer the question. And now you're just refining the form of the handstand. In, let's say, a standard vinyasa class, holding a 1-minute handstand usually is not part of the class. Right? It's more like, hey, kick up to handstand if you got it, and float down to chaturanga if you got it. Some teachers are really good about, taking time out of class and giving all those like little nuggets of information to the students that want it. And I think that's always a real nice treat whenever I'm in a yoga class. I'm like, oh, cool, we get some time to handstand, versus me making the time on my own inside their woven vinyasa flow. Trying to think of, the other one, the other big anatomical difference, the feet. Obvious, right? So hand balancers are all about aesthetic, and it's about the big curve in the upper foot and the toes curled in. So other way to say that is just, point your toes. And then in yoga, a lot of times, in many practices, it is the dorsiflex foot with the fan toes. And I do understand that there's energetic reasons behind that. So yoga would say not all yoga, but definitely some. Flex your foot back, fan your toes. Hand balancers would say, lock out your knees, flex your quads, point your feet as hard as you can. So those are just some of the bigger anatomical differences. One other difference that I see that has to do with the anatomy, but necessarily I wouldn't consider quote unquote anatomical, is the breath. Now in a yoga practice, if you're using ujjayi, it's that big, long, deliberate inhale, and then constrict the back of the throat on the exhale. And these are long, powerful breaths. Whereas in hand balancing, you actually don't want to use big breath. You want to breathe as normally as possible, because if you're going for endurance, one of the things that will knock you out is the movement of your mid body. And lo and behold, that's where your diaphragm exists, right? So if you're moving your rib cage a bunch in handstanding, the odds, you're decreasing your chance of staying up for longer. But then again, you can make the argument that, well, what if that's the way I train it? Wouldn't I just get good at it? And I would say, yeah, probably.
Yeah, right. Some of these things are about like intentionally creating resistance to make it harder. Whereas, hand balancing is a performance art. So you would want to make it as efficient and easy to sustain as possible. So I feel like the differences that you've laid out point to that and serve that end.
Yeah. It's like, what's your why? And I used to be really hardcore about this because I had a gymnastics coach who just denounced everything about yoga, and he was a hell of a salesman. And so I kind of got on with his mindset there for a little while. I'm like, oh, yoga has it all wrong. But now the more I teach and the more modalities of movement I study between yoga, gymnastics, hand balancing, I love lifting now. I go on a dance retreat every year with a bunch of ballerinas, which is super fun because I just love that kind of movement too. The more modalities I study, it all comes down to what's your why. Like, do you want to be a hand balancer? No? Okay, great. Then you don't need to have a perfect handstand. If you want to kick up a few times a week in yoga class because it's fun and it's part of your overall vinyasa practice, then do that. And I'm not here to tell you that that's wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah. And even some of the things that you pointed out as being like characteristic of the yoga handstand, I feel like that's probably you're talking more about like an Ashtanga influenced or inspired type of practice. But if you look at something like Dharma Mitra's class, I mean, he points his toes in every posture, and he doesn't do the Ujjayi breath. He has a soft breath that's silent. So, there are choices, and even within any of these modalities, you can go deeper and pick a focus that you hone in on. But I love what you said ultimately about, you do get the same sort of mindset benefit of being focused, being present, and being totally absorbed in what you're doing.
Yeah, I love that you brought up the Dharma Mitra. So the things I said about yoga, I'm speaking to like power vinyasa yoga as I learned it in this one super narrow way. And then there's, in the overall bucket of yoga, there's how many different styles of yoga?
More than we ever know. There's goat yoga, beer yoga,
gun
you
yoga.
Name it.
There's gun yoga. There's death metal yoga. There's all kinds of yoga out there if you're on Facebook long enough and just keep scrolling. What's funny about Dharma, when I've never met Dharma Mitra, but I like him already because of a story my buddy Paul told me. Paul was in gymnastics and then Paul studied at Dharma's place, and Paul told me the story, and I tell it a lot in workshops, especially at yoga studios. When he asked Dharma Mitra in class one time, "Why do you point your toes?" And he was expecting like some giant volcano of yoga knowledge to be poured out from Dharma Mitra. And he turns to my buddy Paul and very simply says, "Oh, because it's prettier." And I was like, there's so like, there's so much wisdom in that answer. Like this guy who's been his legendary yoga teacher, right? And he just gives the simplest answer. It's prettier. So do it this way.
Yeah, totally. And the other thing that he says a lot is don't do it better than the teacher.
Oh, geez. Okay. I get it. That's funny. That's nice. And like, hey, if any of you guys in this room are better handstanders than me, there's the door.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, I mean, he's kidding when he says it, but he does say that.
Right. Yeah. That's hilarious.
So on the note of, the teacher and his role in the hierarchy compared to students and the greater scheme of, authorities out there, you made a little offhanded self-deprecating remark about being 37 and still being the one who's teaching handstanding all over the world. You travel, you have a constantly booked calendar of events where you teach these handstand boot camps, and you have your online business running in the background the whole time. Talk to me about that. Like, did you ever face any sort of self-doubt or insecurity around being the person creating this much of an impact or trying to?
I still run with that every now and again, this kind of like whole imposter syndrome. And
thank you. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome is very real, man. It's like, I hadn't even been teaching for 3 months when I started Reflection Yoga, my very first site, but I knew I had the tech background. I could figure it out. And I'm not the world's best handstander either. And you don't have to be. To anyone out there like listening to this that thinks, man, am I worth this? Am I good enough? I've found that if you stay in your lane and you pick your people that you can teach, you're going to do just fine. So I'm a handstand coach. I am not a circus coach. I am not teaching Cirque du Soleil level hand balancers. I am teaching your basic, or not basic, but your normal yoga practitioner that wants to clean up their handstand. So there's a market out there and a population for anyone that wants to get into teaching this or any other skill, right? If you devote your time to it, and you practice a lot, like people want to learn from you. And I think one of the things that got me over that in the early stages was, I practice a ton. My own personal practice. When I do it, it's a 2.5 hour full on experience. And I do that several times a week. I've attended many, many workshops with not just other yoga teachers that teach handstand, but actual hand balancers. I've done private lessons with so many people. And I sat back and I looked at that and I was like, okay, my brain is actually, I believe in myself that my brain is worth something. I've put in the hours, I've logged them. Now, am I a lead hand balancer for Cirque du Soleil? No. And then would those guys even be that adept at teaching, let's say like a 45-year-old yoga mom that's been practicing for 10 years? Do they have a lot in common? Maybe, maybe not. I feel like since I learned as an adult and I've been through the adult struggles of learning handstand, that I am totally within my skill set to travel around and to teach these things to the right students that want to learn. So I guess I appreciate the question because it is very real, something that a lot of people deal with. Like, who am I to be a teacher? Who am I to be a coach? Who am I to do this or that? And you got to realize that if you've put in the work, yeah, you deserve it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really well said. Particularly the part about, maybe you are uniquely capable of resonating with a specific person. I think oftentimes when we are struggling with this imposter syndrome, it's because we're trying to compare ourselves to all of the people who are out there in our line of sight, but potentially we're missing out on seeing all these people who are not being spoken to. And there's room for many different types of teachers.
Yeah, and it's if you compare yourself to the best in the world and you try to get to their level before you start your business, you will literally never get started. Right?
Yeah.
Because like if I look at, let's take our coach, Miguel. If I look at Miguel's practice and I say, well, I'm only worthy of teaching when I get to that level, good luck. Good luck doing that. It's just like there's so many reasons to not start a business. And you know what sucks about all of them is that most of them are totally valid. It's like, yeah, it takes time. Yeah, it might cost you some money. Yeah, it's going to be really hard. It's not nearly as safe as getting a 9 to 5 for sure. And all of those things are totally true. And also on the other side of it is a really cool experience that you can have and go impact and change people's lives. And added bonus, you get to do something that you love in the process.
Yes. And that's the biggest one. Like, you take on these risks, you take on these potential hurdles and struggles because you care, you care about doing the thing that you want to do. And it's more important to you to further your passion than to clock in and clock out.
Right. Yeah. The idea of building, I sometimes do like kind of I wouldn't call them full on consultations anymore, but I sit down and talk with friends about starting their business, and they're like, I want to do something in the online space. What should I do? I was like, okay, well, what do you enjoy doing most in your free time when you're not getting paid? And then they'll say their thing. And I'm like, find a way to get paid for it. Right. Yeah. So I would go to the gym and just do handstands all day. I'm already doing this. Why not start a business around it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. If you can find a thing that like brings you a lot of joy to do yourself, and you're able to provide some sort of value with regard to that to another person, then that seems like an opportunity for a business.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you're excited, like if you like doing it, you're going to be excited about talking about it to people. When people ask me about my course, I just come unglued. You know what I mean? I just love talking about handstands. And when people write me and they have questions, I get back to them. At least I do my best to get back to them in a timely manner. My inbox seems to be over the past couple of years getting increasingly harder to manage. But when you care about what you're doing and someone says, hey man, I'm having trouble in my tuck up to handstand. What am I doing wrong? And I'll be like, yo, dude, send me a video. Let me analyze it and break it down. And so would I do that if I like had a job in an accounting firm and I didn't like being an accountant? Probably not. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be doing extra work for free because it's like you said, it's clock in and then clock out. Every 2 weeks I get my paycheck, and then that's just my life.
Yep. Yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned earlier on in our conversation that you wouldn't have started the business probably had you known at the time how much work laid ahead of you on the road. But now I can tell because, I mean, it's obvious from our conversation right now, but I also know from talking to you and being your friend that you actually have a love for the business side of what you do as well. So talk a little bit about what is involved there and what drives you, like what parts of building a business are exciting to you? Because I know that's something that a lot of yoga teachers tend to struggle with. Like, I want to practice yoga. I want to do this practice and share this practice with other people because it feels important to me and it gives me spiritual purpose, but I don't want to deal with the capitalism. I don't want to deal with having to take care of numbers or watch my finances, So how do we get excited about that?
Yeah, I would say to maybe think about it in like a different mindset, right? I always thought about my first yoga business as I can do way more good for the world if I am a successful entrepreneur with high spirits and I'm in a good place of what I'll consider abundance. And that doesn't mean just like finance, but like abundance of time. Or am I so busy that I don't even have time to take care of myself, and thus I don't even have time in turn to take care of my students?
Mm-hmm.
So to anyone that's, thinking about starting a business, or like, hey, I'm a yoga teacher and I want to figure out what else is out there and can I make online content, and the other one is like, well, there's already so much content out there. How am I going to make a splash in this giant chasm of content that's out there in the internet? I just, number one, believe in yourself, that just because someone else has taught a yoga class, or maybe someone else has taken a yoga class, they haven't taken yours. What if they really resonate with you? What if there's a market out there that just loves your personality, the way you speak, the way you weave a class together? Those people are out there waiting for you, but you will never find them if you don't have your content out there. And I think one of the other parts about like getting it, if you're not excited about doing it, then it might not be just the right time. You need to have the excitement rather than it be a grind. I have, when I first was building my site in the weeks leading up to launch, Henry, there was nights I stayed up until like 3 a.m. and then would get up at 7 the next morning and then do it all again. And I would just go sit at a coffee shop and build this site. I even learned like pieces of coding because I had to at one point to get certain things built on my own. And I did, that was fueled by the excitement of what was on the other side of it. And to that note, now that I wouldn't say I'm fully on this other side, but I have a really good grasp of where my life is headed now. And if I looked back to where I was and then this place where I am now, I can tell you that being on this side of it and sitting here talking about it with you, and hopefully people listen to this and get motivated, this is, kind of the magic. But I don't get to have this part if I wasn't willing to just suffer and cry and bleed and do all of the bad things in the beginning that were, working the 19-hour days or whatever it was. So, I hope that was a good answer to your question. I know a bit long-winded, but I
love my long-winded ansers. That's the best kind.
Less work for you as the host, right?
Yeah, you're bringing the content, Kyle.
Boom. The business side for me has always been a passion, because you got to think, I was a businessman that got into yoga, not a yoga teacher that eventually later wanted to start a business. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And I think most people who are listening right now, where this is like catching their ears a little bit more than usual, they're in the same boat. They care about sharing and they want a way to do it at higher scale.
Yeah, there's the magic also for me is like when I get that email from a person that says, Kyle, here's my video. I did it. I finally got my first handstand. Like, that gives me goosebumps. That's the reason I get out of bed in the morning. That is like my ideal student online, or when obviously you're a teacher as well, you know the feeling of the in-person workshop where the student does something they've literally never done before, and they look at you with those big bright eyes just to make sure you saw it, and you wink at them and you're like, hey, I got you, boo. I see you over there. And I feel those. I know it's very maybe you could argue that this is ego, but I do believe in celebrating hard work. So if someone gets a handstand for the first time in any one of my workshops, you better believe I'm going to stop the entire workshop and acknowledge it,
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I think we have to celebrate the accomplishments. That's what gives you that feeling of enthusiasm that drives you forward to continue practicing, to show you that your discipline and consistency is in fact paying off.
Yeah. And that's all hand balancing is, right? You know, the best hand balancers in the world, I mean, you could argue that they're talented, but I would say the easier argument is that they've just practiced it more than you have. That's it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a combination of both, but neither one is sufficient. Like you need to be able to put in the time. Yeah,
and that weekend workshops are great because I feel like you come to a guy like me to learn technique and tips and drills. Now, my weekend workshops are usually like a 2-day combo, 3 hours a day. That's only 6 hours cumulative of learning. The real work starts when the workshop's over. And now you have to remember those things. You have to integrate them into your daily practice, and you have to do them when no one's looking in order to get better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I feel that. And I echo that. Let's say it again. Say it one more time, Kyle.
Yeah. So you have the real work starts when the workshop is over, and you have to do the work when no one's looking.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Boom.
Amen. Boom. Okay, Kyle, you said you had a pretty good idea these days. I mean, relatively speaking, compared to years ago of where your life is headed. So what's coming up? What's in your future? What do you envision for the next phases of Kyle Weiger
Yeah.
Handstand Productions?
Kyle Weiger Handstand Productions LLC. No, the immediate future for me right now holds a boatload of travel. I'm currently in Denver on the beginning of a 3-month tour while I'll be away from home for 3 months, going around. I got the United States, Europe, and then Australia. Bigger vision for me is to do more like handstand destination retreats, one of which I'm doing in Costa Rica towards the end of the year. And then the more long-term vision is continue building the handstand online business. And I probably, honestly, Henry, will actually travel less. I am very much interested in getting rooted back in Denver and eventually either moving back here or finding a way to cohabitate Southern California and Denver, so that's a big goal of mine. And I'm going to do that through my other passion, which is online business and helping other entrepreneurs. So I work with a company called MemberDev, and we are currently building a number of things, one of which is a platform for online or for people that want to take their content online, but are just like, they throw their hands in the air when they have to build a website and they're just like, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. It's too hard.
Too technical.
Yeah, too technical. At MemberDev, we're like, hey, we understand this is hard. So we're building a platform where if you have a WordPress site, you plug in our platform and it outlays all of the instructions on how to upload the videos. It hosts the videos in a really nice format. So you, like a course, for example, would have a course title and then each phase of the course, your progressions, then each phase would have like modules. So just a really easy parent-child table. And we're going to package this up. It's currently in beta testing right now, and we're learning a ton. We're going to package this up and say, hey, let us do this for you. You do what you do best, which is make content about your field of expertise or your, zone of genius. And we'll take the technical part out of it. And even more so, we'll show you exactly what tools to use, how to hook up a payment processor. We're going to do it in 3 easy steps for you. And then Kyle will come in. So that's my partner, by the way. He builds the car. He builds the house. I just, pick out the furniture. I make it look nice. So then I'm the marketing piece, right? And so, okay, great. You got this course. It's hosted. Your content is officially out there online. Now, how do we get some more eyes on it? And that's where I come in. And I am very much interested in teaching people how to build like landing pages, for example, or what goes into a good landing page, what goes good into a good like email sequence. If someone signs up for your list and you're a yoga teacher and you have like a free, 30-minute yoga flow or something you want to give away to people, how do you get that person interested to get your free product, to get on your list, and then start an ongoing dialogue or relationship with them via email? So that's going to be my next big life thing is to build a business around building businesses, right? So I built I built a business on handstand, and the proof is in the pudding. It worked. And so how do we cut paste this model to anyone who wants to teach a skill? You can be teaching Spanish, teaching how to play the violin or piano, teaching yoga or handstand, whatever it is, the model works, right? And so that's my next big one. So be on the lookout for 2020 for this to make a pretty big splash. I already got the one course done. Like I said, my partner Ali, his platform is in beta testing. We're going really well, and we just met this week while I was in Denver, and we've decided to deliberately take our sweet time with this thing because it could be really, really big, and we want to make sure we nail it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, it seems like a natural progression for you as someone who's been down the road. And as you put it, you put your blood, sweat, and tears into figuring out all the difficult stuff that really isn't all that relevant to the actual material of what you were teaching. And to be able to take that hurdle away from other people is just going to empower all of these people who have something to share to be able to do it.
Yeah, I can't even tell you how, like, I have yoga teachers that I know, and I'm sure you might have the same. There's a few here in Denver that I just idolize and emulate, and I want to teach like them. But they have zero content online because they're like, I'm not interested in learning that because it doesn't make me a better yoga teacher. And I'm like, you are my perfect ideal person to use this new platform.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
It's like you said earlier, it's like, how do you want to choose, or why are you doing the things that you do? Choose your actions accordingly. And those people, their decision makes sense, right?
Yeah, totally.
Given the opportunities available now, but you'll step in with a solution to that problem, which maybe they don't even see as a problem at the moment, but with some education, they could see the possibility that lies ahead.
Yeah, for a minimal amount of effort, to anyone who's listening to this, the course that Henry and I keep referencing, I recorded that on an iPhone, just so everyone is clear. I didn't have a big production team, and then my tripod was like $20. So, and then my microphone was whatever. You don't need a lot of tools. But if you want to get content online, that's the recording piece is easy, and that's anyone can do that. Especially in this day and age, if you own a phone, set it up, record your content. If you want to dress up your studio and put it in a nice setting, then go for it. But that doesn't even really matter, is what I've been discovering. But the part of like getting it online and selling it, that's where most people stop. Mm-hmm. They get the big grandiose. I hear it all the time. The big grandiose ideas, like, hey, I want to do what you did. I want to put my content online. It's going to be so great. And then I follow up with them 6 months later. I'm like, dude, are you making any progress? They're like, man, web development is really hard. And I just kind of shake my head. I'm like, yeah, it is. So hopefully we can meet this market where it needs to be met, which is at that pain point of getting your content on the web. Like we don't record it for you. We don't script it. We don't make it. That's all you. You're the genius there, but we will bridge that gap where you're struggling the most.
So is the course, is your handstanding course built in the same, format as what people can expect from working with MemberDev once it's available?
Totally. So the other big thing with the MemberDev thing is that there's a million softwares out there, right? Like, there's so many for any different tool that you need. So we looked at KyleWeiger.com. We said, okay, we use a certain type of mail delivery software called ActiveCampaign. We use MemberMouse, which is our membership management software, and we use Stripe to process the payments. The layperson that is doing this on their own, they go, okay, I need a membership management software, and they Google it, and they come up with like 100 different choices, and it's paralysis by analysis. They just sit there and they can't make a decision. So we're going to eliminate all that and say, hey, these are the tools that you're going to be using. We're going to teach you how to use them to their maximum efficiency.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah, it's taking KyleWeiger.com and be like, look at the skill. How's the website built? What tools are you using, and how is content delivered? Take that and let's just white label it.
Okay, so everyone listening, you've got 2 reasons to go check out KyleWeiger.com. One is if you want to learn how to do a handstand, then Kyle's your man. He can teach you. And the other reason is if you are interested in teaching online, check out his model and see if it looks appealing to you. Because if so, it's coming at you in 2020.
It's coming at you. It's coming at you hard. Obviously I will be marketing this on Facebook and Instagram. So if they follow me there, they'll see the ads and the announcements and the teasers come up for sure.
Kyle is a great person to be friends with on Facebook. An endless source of entertainment. My personal, constantly stirring the pot.
Yeah, my personal Facebook feed is either me making wildly sarcastic, tower long posts, or just memes I find on the internet that crack me up at 11 o'clock at night as I'm going to bed.
Well, on that note, I think now is the perfect time to roll on into the final section of the interview, which is the prana round. And I'll ask you 6 rapid fire questions. Please answer minimum 1 word, maximum 1 sentence. Okay?
Wait, 6 rapid fire questions.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right. Here we go. Let's do it.
Okay. In 1 word, why do you practice yoga?
Silence.
What's your favorite yoga pose and why?
Believe it or not, it's not the handstand. I love halfway lift, man. I don't know. There's something just so simple about it, and my hamstrings love it.
Nice. Okay. What is the single best cue or piece of advice you've ever received from a teacher? It can be a yoga teacher, hand balance teacher, baseball coach, hand balance teacher, whatever you want.
Best piece of advice, and I use it all the time in my handstand coaching: get taller. It's the simplest cue. Get taller. Mm-hmm.
Recommend 1 book, either modern or ancient, for our listeners.
Easily. I'll recommend literally any book by Dr. Joe Dispenza. One specifically could be You Are the Placebo.
You Are the Placebo by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Okay. Is yoga for everyone?
Yes.
Last question. How can our audience get in touch with you, and how can we support you in your Dharma?
Oh, wow. What a good, yeah, I guess to support me, I just like connecting, man. I just like talking to people. You can hit me up. I don't have a clever Instagram name. It's just Kyle Weiger. Same with my Twitter handle, although I'm never on Twitter. And then my email is kyle@kyleweiger.com.
Right on. Thank you so much for your
it.
time. Kyle, it's been a blast, and I look
you,
forward to
Henry.
seeing you soon. We're gonna
Yeah.
You're coming to New York.
I'm coming to New York, man. I'll be there in like 2 or 3 weeks or something. And yeah, I can't wait to reconnect, dude.
All right, man. I'll see you in New York.
Yay. Thank you, Henry. Have a great one, man.
Dharma Talkers, I hope you enjoyed listening to that conversation as much as I enjoyed having it. And if you did, please share it. Take a screenshot, share it on Instagram, and tag me @HenryWins. I love hearing from you about the conversations that make an impact for you. We have the ability to shape the world through our thoughts, words, and conversation. So let's influence the collective consciousness together. All my gratitude to Rory Wagstaff of Ease of Mind Productions for keeping our audio crisp and operations smooth, and to Patrick Kiebzak of Momentology Music and Art for supplying the powerful soundtrack to these conversations. Please remember to subscribe, rate, and review, and tune in to new episodes of Dharma Talk every Thursday. I'll speak to you next week, and until then, keep living your Dharma.